you kind of lost me at data transfer. I don't know what's going on.
FTP, file transfer protocol.
Now, what we have to remember is that not every position can be changed to every other position.
And making sure that the users we have now stay happy and stay on while trying to attract some other people to play it.
They make
Hustle home, but yeah. No, that's over in a heartbeat. Ain't got any problem with
that. Welcome everybody, and tonight is going to be a rather short show. We did have a couple guys lined up, but unfortunately other things have kept them from being able to make the show tonight. No big deal. We'll press on, and I'll give you some information that's been getting kind of warm on the forum, so we'll discuss some of that. First and foremost, know there were some storms recently. Well, since the last time we were on the air through the Midwest, and we definitely have our thoughts and prayers going out to those folks who have suffered any type of damage, any type of loss, personal, professional, whatever the case may be. So thoughts and prayers out to all those folks. And it is that time of year. We do have tornadoes, especially here in central part of Arkansas. Them naders, they pop up, and actually I think they pop down, don't they? But anyway, they creep up on you, and before you know it, you catch yourself in a situation that's not very safe. So everybody be sure to keep your weather notice with you, whether it's a radio or some type of internet connected device. Definitely stay safe. It's not something that we think about until we need to, and preparedness will definitely go a long way with you. Anyway, like I said, we got a couple things from the forum we want to talk about, and we did have some other guests that were going to be on that aren't going to be able to make it, but one guy that is going to be able to make it is none other than Phil. Let's see if we can get him on here. Nope, can't get him on here. How are you?
Here we go. Can you hear me all right? How's it going?
Absolutely. Got you loud and clear, man. It's good to see you. It seems like it's like once a year thing with us. Every once in a while we'll catch up and visit and see how the winds are racking up in your part of the world.
We can't do it too often, otherwise it would be I don't know, we'd get nothing accomplished, which we'll probably won't get anything accomplished anyway. So
yeah. Well, I had invited Shannon to be with us tonight. This is not an anniversary special or nothing, but that bum is he let me know earlier today he's out on the ship in the Caribbean. So
well, it is Cinco de Mayo, so
yeah, somebody's got to do it.
There's a lot of excuses out there.
Yeah, that poor bastard. But anyway, man, how's it been going? How things going for you?
Yeah, everything's going. It's speaking of Cinco de Mayo, it's May. Hard to believe that we're already at this time of year, but yeah, everything's going good. Still getting, my ass handed to me in GridIron Dynasty and all that. So it's all good. Nothing's changed.
Have you learned anything since the last time we talked that you're willing to share?
I think I'm getting worse as the more experience I get.
Well, you're not alone in that regard, because I'm beginning to think that myself. It just seems that no matter what I try to do, it doesn't seem to work. But one of the guys I was chatting with recently, he longtime player, and he mentioned the fact that he went through a phase where it just seemed like he was structuring his game plan and his playbooks right into the hands of his opponent. And he said I did things that I wouldn't think I would do in order to win games. So basically, he kind of went counter to what he thought he would do in a particular situation, because he had figured out that others had figured him out.
Right.
So it was like,
So he was trying to overthink it and reverse it. I like it. Reverse psychology. That's good.
Yeah. So I'm a diehard run first guy. I mean, even when I coached in the real world, I used the run to set up the pass, and
Right.
That's been my predominant offensive strategy and setup, and it just isn't working as well as it has been. So to all those listening, my opponents out there, I'm throwing on your asses.
I feel like the after many years and after following the game plans of some others out there that are far better, that I feel like the passing game is really the way to go. And so that's how I've always ran, or at least in recent years have structured my offenses, and at least in the worlds that I'm in, that the coaches I'm going against, they've figured that out and have shut it down pretty well. So I've actually gone the other way, and I've tried to incorporate more runs. I know in Heisman that I'm in, I'm actually deploying a new formation. I'm trying the Notre Dame box a little bit, seeing if that's working. I think it surprised some folks initially, but they quickly they quickly got onto me and have shut it down. So I don't know what to do.
It's a game, and you have to. If you don't laugh at yourself, you're just going to get super frustrated, and you have to do things out of the ordinary. Like there was a game several weeks back where I said, you know what, screw it. I'm throwing to my tight end every play. And in the first half, I realized, that's not working.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta try those screwy things. Now, Joe, independent one, let's see, he's with us.
Oh,
Joe will
nice.
tell you, he's got a couple IDs, and he'll try a little bit of different things with each one of them to figure out what works. Ain't that right, Joe?
I don't know. Game planning? Are we supposed to game plan? Is that what you're saying? I thought you could just recruit and overwhelm people.
Yeah, throw all the studs at them and hope it sticks, right?
Well,
right.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of studs on my teams, so it hasn't been working real well recently. I don't know. I think probably a little bit like what Phil was just talking about. Seems like some people have figured me out, and I'm trying to find a way to become unpredictable, and I haven't quite found that magic yet. Looks like we lost the host.
Yeah. Speaking of magic, you just did a disappearing act on us.
No, I'm trying to get my lighting set up here a little bit better. Ugh,
Yeah, lighting is everything.
Whew. That hurts my noggin.
I kind of liked it better when you got yourself completely out of the picture, but
that
that'll
like
work.
that, a little dark, you can't see me. Yeah, that's one thing that I used to let my offenses basically identified based on the upcoming class. And that class was, of course, the recruiting class that I'm talking about. So if we had a good quarterback in that recruiting class and we happened to have some good wide receivers, then that offense tended to be a little more pass heavy if it was, a little weak in the running back area. And then on the flip side of that, if there was a quarterback drop to where I couldn't draft or recruit a quarterback because there were so few of them that were any good, then, I tended to be more run heavy. And that, that was pretty much my mentality early on. And then as Phil and I were just talking, I went to a predominantly run first to throw offense. And now I'm basically scrapping everything and going to start over because there's, I've been doing this 20 years now. And I mean, the goal is not necessarily to win a national championship. It's to figure out how to win a national championship, and I've won some, but don't ask me how the hell I did it. So
Right.
My quest is to figure out how those things come, one after the other.
Yeah. Is the strategy how to win it, or is it just not how to lose?
Either one, I'll take them.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of luck involved too. I mean, certainly you can touch all the bases with every element of the game that's important. But I'm just waiting for the holy grail recruiting class to come along, or just waiting for the right seeding in the playoffs. Literally my 5th season, which was like 5 years ago, I made it to the national championship game. And now I know it had nothing to do with my abilities. It had a lot to do with getting lucky with the seedings and everything. So,
that's been my experience.
If you stick with a team, you stick with a strategy, and you recruit fairly well, you just hope that one season, every now and then, everything lines up for you.
Yeah. And then, again, it goes back to these guys who tend to, and I'm not going to throw the names out there because we all know who they are, and some of them aren't even playing anymore, honestly.
Unmentionable names.
They just, it seems like they grab a team and it's guaranteed that in their 5th year, they're going to win their first of many national championships with that team in a short span of time. And you look at their roster, you look at their box score, and there's something there, but it's not really anything different than, what anybody else is doing for that part. So it's got to come down to the strategy or the knowledge of the strategy for defense. They say that your defense will win you championships. Well, I'm not talking about a defense in of itself. I'm talking about an offensive defense. Right. In other words, you isolate your primo guy and you defend him by only putting him on the field in those situations where he's going to excel. And when he excels, he does it, fantastically, to where it's, a 60-yard catch for a touchdown. And you look at his stats and he's averaging, 40 yards per catch. And he's got the second fewest catches on the team. Well, why isn't he on the field all the time? Well, because this coach knows that the situations dictate when he needs to be on the field and when he doesn't. And that's what I haven't figured out, those matches and defending your opponent's defense, when to put the scrubs out there on offense to wear out your opponent's defense. Right. And then when his scrubs are in the game, then, you've got your upper echelon guys in the game that, they're going to do well regardless, but they're going to do real good against the second teamers that are on the field. So that's kind of what I think is the difference between where I am and where they are.
The things that you're talking about right there, and when you're there's been times where I've tried to sit down and look at a game plan or try to game plan it and do exactly what you're talking about, where it's like, I'm going to line up my guys in the right situation and try to take advantage of that. And that's about as far as I get before my mind starts wandering, and then I lose interest, and then I'm like, I'm just going to plug in the game plan I had before and run with that.
You almost have to be a little, basically in a room with no windows, no music, no other internet connectivity, nobody there to bother you, no cell phone, so that when you sit down to do this, there's no clock, nothing. You do it, and when you're done, then you get out.
Then you're done. Yep.
And I don't have that.
So my problem is, I examine different, different games that my opponents have played, and I see, he runs Notre Dame box, and he runs all the time. So I prepare for that. Yep. And then when he gets to me, he throws.
Yeah.
or I anticipate. This guy's running Notre Dame box, and he's going to throw against me. So I set up for the throw, and he runs it down my throat.
And then you switch it back at halftime, and he does the exact opposite, and then you
flips it exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, you see, I take it further. I think, he thinks I'm going to switch it back, so I'll stay. And then he stays, and then increases his margin on me.
He knows that I know that he knows that I know that he knows. That I know.
Yeah, what's he thinking?
But to me, it's one of those golden nuggets that the hidden wisdom, if you will, that isn't necessarily a magic pill in of itself, but being able to figure that out is the magic pill. How to do that. It's not It's not a particular play. It's not a particular playbook or a game plan or formation or a particular core or particular style of running back. It is having a great recruiting class and being able to leverage that class based on your knowledge of picking apart your opponent and identifying areas where your guys, regardless of their ability, your guys can excel, especially if they're studs. Like we were saying a moment ago, they can really open the game up. And, you look at the box score and the guy has the ball out of 60 minutes. He's got the ball for 18 minutes and he won 92
Right.
to 10. It's like, what the heck? How did that happen? So
How did that happen? Yeah.
I got to figure that out. Have you guys, I was looking at the board and kind of what we were talking about, the players and the positions and stuff. This one always seems to come up. This one and the one, Holdaway's favorite, which running back is the fullback, in D3.
Oh, right.
That one.
Yeah.
But the question is, regarding your quarterback, if you're running a wishbone. Now, there's a lot that is not a standard yes or no answer. Do you need a quarterback to run the wishbone? When I say need a quarterback, a quality quarterback who can air it out. And that is not a standard yes or no answer, because you can run a wishbone that does nothing but throws. And yes, in that regard, you would need a quarterback that can chunk the ball. Now, on the other side, you've got a wishbone that's, 90% run or whatever. Do you really need a quarterback? Well, not in the throwing sense, I wouldn't think, but you would probably need one to do a little running for you to help out or give you another opportunity. When you can get a wide receiver, 3 running backs, and a quarterback, all with the potential of running the ball, it makes a defense have to think that much harder to defend you. But
Right.
if your quarterback is not a very good ball carrier or your wide receiver isn't very successful, you're back down to just those 3 guys that can easily be defended. So, the question is, what do you want to do with the wishbone? And that answer will tell you whether or not you need a quarterback. Am I right? Guess not.
Well, the wishbone, yeah, it's I can't foresee myself doing the wishbone, to be honest. I mean, that by nature, in my mind, and maybe this doesn't apply to the game, but it applies in real life, is a very limited offense. And I like to have, possibilities for moving outside the box. But I would think that you can get a quarterback, that's not expensive. If you're if you have a wishbone, just get a top 100 quarterback. You don't need a top 10 quarterback. Just you can even drop down to Division I AA. If you're a Division I A, drop down to Division I AA and pick up a quarterback there for real cheap, and he can hand the ball off all day long.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of this theoretically. I've never run the wishbone. Come across it, I guess, on defensively, but I've never run it myself. So to the point we're talking about here, is it just a serviceable quarterback that just is going to get it done? And then I guess the other part would be that regardless of who you have in there, how much does like a formation IQ come into play?
Sure.
To help execute, that.
Right.
So you want to find a guy, whether it's a quarterback or you don't draft a quarterback and you just have a player that's getting subbed in there. Like, is it just more about putting a guy in there that knows what they're doing, just from a formation IQ, just to try to have those attributes be more than what's going up against your opponent? And maybe I'm thinking about that entirely wrong, but I have seen those posted out there on the message boards, and I just don't really think about it a whole lot because I don't run that type of offense. So,
well, my high school ran the wishbone, and my high school coach knows the answer to this question because he had me at like a 3 or 4 string quarterback, and I couldn't throw. So There's your answer.
Like,
No, you do not need a throwing quarterback to run the wishbone.
You're in. It's your chance. Yeah.
It's one of those formations that if you know how to leverage it, you can really get some good things going for you and keep your defense, off center and make them think. But, like Joe said, me personally, I prefer to have a little bit more in my toolbox as far as options going forward.
Right. I need more tools. I need a bigger toolbox. I need more toolboxes. I need a lot.
Now, the other thing that came up on the board that was talked about recently, again, was the whole playing time and promise start situation. And that is in regards to the freshmen have just signed on. The recruiting class is now freshmen on my roster. I've got 2 exhibition games. I want to get my freshmen max playing time to elevate their growth and be able to get them growing immediately. But I promised a quarterback a freshman start at 50%, and he's in the game and he's only getting 20%, and he's not getting the start. Is that going to hurt me in my first 2 exhibition games? And the answer is no. We've said that before, but the question still comes up. Yeah. The answer is no. And just for the record, it was on the forums. I'll say it here. Your promises, whether it's freshman start or playing time in that first year. In other words, when you make those promises to freshman start or playing time, those must be honored during the regular season. Now, when it comes to the conference championship and playoffs, hands off. It no longer applies. So that's the short answer to some of those questions about, how's it going to hurt? Now, of course, there's caveats, and we've all talked about this in the past, where you've got players who are more of a team player that won't gripe if they're getting 34% playing time or 34%. And then you've got a guy who's all about himself. And if he's getting 35.1, he's going to bitch because he thinks he should be getting more, even though you only promised him 35%. So,
Yep.
The short answer don't matter.
Yeah. I know. I think the thing I learned off the forums, or maybe it was in one of these videos, I don't know, but I tend to promise those starts more so to my quarterbacks. I feel like. Just because I'm trying to recruit them and I try to go after some more higher quality guys. So I gotta put a little bit more in there, but I try to avoid the freshman starts. I'll promise sophomore starts because I like to redshirt, my quarterbacks. But I think the little secret sauce there is to what was explained in the forums and perhaps what you alluded to right there. But I do devise my game plans when I have those situations where if I got to get those freshmen or those sophomore quarterback starts, I'm putting that quarterback in on running plays. I don't want him. I don't want him throwing the ball because I know he's going to throw it to the other team. So I just put him in there and he hands the ball off and he gets his starts and he gets those percentages and all as well. So I mean and I don't think that's cheating. That's just gaming the system, right, and everything. And so there's nothing wrong against that. So
and the caveat to that, Phil, is when you promise that start, you didn't promise him throwing the ball or handing it off.
Yeah, you're just going to put him on the field. Yeah. So I think that's I've seen that question come up a few times about promise starts, and I know that what I just said has been answered, but it doesn't hurt to reiterate that every once in a while, I guess. So.
Well, I think if you can't offer a start by the sophomore year, I offer starts to probably 80% of my players by the sophomore year.
Sure.
It's just a matter of knowing how to get them in the game. And if you know how to create more than one lineup and plug those lineups into
rotate them in,
you just create 2 lineups and you make sure those 2 lineups each get equal playing time. And most of your players should be covered. I mean, of course, there may be a couple long-term developmental players you might have on your team. maybe you're at the end of your recruiting class and you've missed out on a couple players, and you're willing to take a defensive back who's got a kind of lower cores, but they're very high in potential. But you shouldn't have trouble getting your players into the game to get at least 35% playing time by their sophomore year, I think.
Yeah, and we've talked about how to do that, and essentially it's really easy at D2 and above. At D3, holy crap, I don't even want to touch that one. But at D2 and above, you have those additional 4 scenarios when you're setting up your game plan. And for instance, and I've mentioned it, so it's no big secret, I'll mention it again. What I like to do is use my specific depth chart, like my running back possession, running back power, running back one, whatever. Those are the guys I've got in my playbook and in my formations for my usual offenses that I mix and match here or there. The generic or the default selections where it's just running back, wide receiver, O lineman, D lineman, that is where I make sure that my underclassmen are freshman to senior in inverse order, freshman to senior. And then I use the default setting on each of the formations, that very first one you come to. I use that default setting with those generic positions, your wide receiver, your running back, your tight end, whatever. And I will use that in the playbook where if I'm ahead in the game by 22 points, at the start of the second quarter or the fourth quarter, my playbook will pull that formation into the game. Now, what that has done is, along with that formation coming into the game, it's identified all those default or generic positions. And in my depth charts, those are the ones filled by the underclassmen. So in the second or fourth quarter, depending on the margin in the points, my freshmen are going to be in the game. Or, I set it up later on where there's 5 minutes to go and I'm up by 15 points or whatever the case may be. But that's one of the techniques I use to do that without getting convoluted and having to look to see exactly where I need to put somebody. And am I really shortchanging my offensive line by putting this guy here? I'm hoping that if I can get those guys in the game for a quarter in each half, that's 50% essentially, unless you're running some really long offenses in the first and third quarter and short offenses if I'm using offensive guys. The other thing too is I usually keep my starters or my routine, effective subs anywhere from 95 to 90% sub rate. And then my freshmen, I'll put them at 60% because once they're in the game is usually out of reach. It's that second and fourth quarter when I've got a huge spread in my favor or I'm getting my butt kicked so bad that I've got a losing set up too, to where if I'm getting shellacked about 30 points, put the freshman in.
Yep.
But by having them set at 60%, I know that when they go in the game, they're not going to be subbed out because my starters aren't at the top of the pecking order in that particular depth chart. So those guys will be in the game puking their guts out, but by God, they're getting, 60% playing time in that fashion. And they're happy. So that's just some of the things you can do at D2 and above by using those additional defensive and offensive game plan options that you can really manipulate those, practice with those, play around with those, and you can find out that it's really super easy to get your guys playing time. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they'll offer a freshman start and don't offer playing time. Or inverse, they'll offer, 40% playing time, but not a freshman start. Now, the magic theory is 35% equates a start. So if you've got, a player who's getting 35% playing time, he's going to get credit for a start 9 out of 10 times. So why would you offer 35% playing time? Because that's your goal. You're going to achieve that 35% and not give him a freshman start. Or why would you give a freshman start and not give him that 35% playing time when, regardless of his stamina, that's the bare minimum that he needs to achieve in order to get that freshman start? That makes sense?
it totally makes sense. I never really thought about that aspect of it.
That's why we have the show.
Yeah, and I think it's usually because I'm just offering the sophomore start. So if you offer a sophomore start with the playing time, then that doesn't really work out that way. But yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, that's smart.
Well, you actually with the sophomore start and offering them playing time, I use playing time as kind of a last resort because I'd rather offer as little as possible to get a recruit. But if I'm fighting and I think I might get him, I'm getting close, then I'll throw it. But if it's a sophomore start, I've already offered, then I'd tend to offer maybe 25 or 30% as opposed to 45%. Because if I'm offering him a sophomore start, that means I don't think he's ready to carry 50% of whatever. I'd prefer to offer as little as possible, but if you're competing against good teams for good players, then you have to offer something. So
I was curious. I know you said earlier that you were going to do. I think that was Joe that said it. He was going to. You offer about 80% starts for your recruits. I think something around that number. I think is what you said. Is that
about
more?
80%.
Is that due to what you just said? Is because it's a recruiting advantage? Is that why you're doing it that high?
Yes.
Or okay?
Yes, 80%. Now, I mean, of course, I offer sophomore starts minimum to everybody.
Okay.
But if I think if it's one or two of my freshman offensive linemen will start every game, so I may as well offer them a freshman start. And then of course I'll look at stamina, the stamina of the player as to how much playing time I'll offer, because I've run into situations where I've offered like 45% playing time to a player and then realized this guy's got real low stamina and he's coming out of the game too often.
He's not going to get it.
Yeah, it's like I have you in the lineup, but you every other play you're coming off the field huffing and puffing. So I look close at stamina when I'm offering playing time. Now, actually, of course, occasionally we have these suggestion threads where this would make the game better. Okay. Yeah. And a suggestion I have made is that if you are offering sophomore start to a player, but you wind up giving the player freshman starting time, that should count towards the sophomore promise you made. It's like I gave you better than I offered. And then if for some reason, the second season, he misses 2 games, his work ethic drops a mile. It's like, dude, I started you every game last year.
I
that's
think
a suggestion I've made. But so in other words, if you offer sophomore starting time and you give him freshman starting time, he gets credit. You get credit for having given him or fulfilling the promise or whatever. And of course, you know how these suggestion threads are. It's like, some people will like your idea and some people will shout you down. And this has been shouted down a couple of times.
I like the analogy of the sophomore start where you promise a guy refuses a freshman start, but he'll take that sophomore start.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that? And it dawned on me, I found the answer. Because his dad's got 1 more year in prison and he won't be out until the guy's a sophomore, and he wants to make sure he's starting when his dad can come to the games. There's your answer, Joe.
Well, I mean, of course, we do know the answer to that reason. When you offered the freshman start, he wasn't all that hot on you. Okay. Yeah. And by the time you've offered the sophomore start, he likes you. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll come.
I never could understand why a kid would turn down a freshman start. I mean, we're talking about X's and O's. We're not talking about emotional and mentality issues here where the guy's thinking, man, I hate to have coach start me as a freshman because I know I'm not good at figuring out a playbook in time. I'd rather wait till I'm a sophomore. So, I don't want to start as a freshman, coach. That's the only scenario in real life where I could see that be applicable.
They have a that wheel, right, with all the different recruiting items on. They just spin it, and it's like wherever it falls, it's like, oh, that's what I'm taking today.
Yeah, it's like that one game that I used to play, and I can't remember if it was Gray Dog Sports or whatever it was, but part of the recruiting pitches is playing time, school prestige, coaches prestige, academics. You had all these different things, and if you pitched the wrong thing, and of course you would send a scout out to the recruit first and kind of be able to glean a little bit of what he wants, so that when you actually sent him a pitch, it was on target and he accepted it because that's what he wanted to hear from you. And now he likes your school. But man, if you sent the wrong one, like if you said, hey, man, our school's got great academics, this guy's a C- student who likes to drink and chase women. He don't care about academics. He flips you off and goes to another school.
Yeah, he thinks you're trolling him.
Exactly. Throw me the honeys, honeys or money, I'm there. Honeys or monies, I'm there. But these guys, they're X's and O's. They don't know those things.
Nope, they don't know.
It's like you said, it's just a random spin of the wheel, and where it lands, that's where you may, get to recruit to like you or not. Or I like the ones who you offer a freshman start and they turn it down. You offer a freshman start, you turn it down. You do that a couple of times, and now you got $1,000 invested in this kid in freshman start, and you get an email back from him, after he accepts a freshman start, like, what took so long? I'm ready. What the hell? I'm not giving you your mail.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah, some of those messages, I don't even read the emails anymore. I save scouting emails just in case I have some very highs or whatever, just see if I get a sky's the limit.
Exactly.
But when you're doing 55 campus visits, you're not going to read every single one of these emails.
It's the same message, just 2 or 3 different versions of it.
Yeah, you drop like 20 campus visits, and then you get into the end, and he sends you a message, and he says, I bet your campus looks great. And it's like, yeah, it does. You've been there 17 times. Like, you got to go again.
You walk on campus and everybody calls you by your name. You've been here so much.
Yeah. In fact, we've given you an apartment on campus. You live here.
Yeah. And one thing I haven't figured out, and none of the staffers have been able to tell me, is in which order your effort is applied to the recruit. In other words, is it based on what you do first? Let's say it's one recruiting cycle, and I send 2 head coach, assistant coach, and a letter. Boom, $45 or whatever it is, sent to them. Then in the same cycle, I may decide, well, I want to send him a head coach scout, a home visit, a campus visit. Now he's got 6 things to look at, or 7 or 8, whatever it is. Which one of those does he look at first? The one that's more impactful as far as the campus visit versus a letter, or does he do it in chronological order based on when you submitted it? And nobody can tell me that. Now, people may think, well, that's really no big deal. But in essence, it is, because if you offer a start or playing time and the guy's, really not into you, and that's the first thing he gets from you, he's going to say, reject. And then by the time he's looking through all the other stuff that's come to him that cycle, he's like, man, this is a great school. I can't wait to play for him. So, if we knew that, the high dollar stuff was first, you could structure your recruiting efforts so that by the time you offer him that start or that promised playing time, you'll know that he's already read through everything else and he's going to be at the best prime position to accept it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've often wondered that when you have several things, which we always do, we're always putting a bunch of different effort into each cycle, and then you go and you look at the emails and it's all at 8:07 p.m. or whatever time, it's not like, but it's like to the point we just talked about, like when he says, hey, I bet it looks great in person, like, and then you had 3 campus visits after that or before. Like,
Yeah.
how do you know? How do you know that? I was like, oh, okay, he said that, and then he went on the visit, or did he go on the visit and now he wants more? Like, you don't know if it's impacting him or not. It's very confusing.
Exactly.
So,
You know what I would like to see. I mean, of course, you can't have complete transparency, but other schools are also sending campus visits to this player.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see something indicating that. I mean, maybe you don't have to tell me that this player has visited Ohio State 27 times, but just like one blurb that, you know, this kid is at Ohio State, or he's been to Ohio State, or whatever. I mean, because in real life, you would know that. You would know that, you know, that the player is visiting other schools or whatever, because some of your actions, some of the things you're asking the recruit to do is being impacted by those other schools.
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, I mean, literally, if let's say I want to go all in on one player, the first cycle, and put $100,000 into that one player, no other school would get anything out of that player. I would overwhelm that player's
all the time, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
as long as you're close,
we are competing, you know, against other teams, and also to include Sim AI teams, you know, because I'm sure the players are visiting Sim AI teams too, you know, unless they're top players, and all the top teams are going for them. But, you know, just for other players, I'm sure they're visiting other, you know, Sim AI teams. So I'd love to see some kind of, you know, this player has visited Ohio State, or this player has visited, you know, Michigan or whatever. So
and that other game that I mentioned earlier, it had a function like that, to where you could go into a player's recruit file and see that he has visited North Carolina twice, Virginia 3 times, Virginia Tech 4 times.
Wow.
And he's interested in X number of schools to get a visit. Now, the other thing it does too is you can put in for a campus visit, and you'll get an email back, you know, during that recruiting cycle. Sorry, but little Timmy can't come to your campus because he's visiting Ohio State this weekend. Because in real life, you know,
that's true.
I can see a player visiting more than 2 or 3 campuses in one weekend. You know, if you've got, say, Virginia playing at, you know, noon and Virginia Tech playing at 6 o'clock at night on a Saturday, he could conceivably go to both those games. I don't know what the NCAA rules are for that, but just from a logistics standpoint. And then let's say North Carolina had a game on Friday night. He could have gone to that one. So in one weekend, he could have, you know, been at 3 different ball games. Whereas this particular game, and again, I don't know if it was Grey Dog or what, but, you know, you couldn't just send 15 campus visits. You could send 1 per recruiting cycle, because that's all he could accept. And if some other school, you know, was higher on his preference list, you got the nasty gram, you know. and if he took your visit, then you didn't know if it was because you're the highest one on his list, or if nobody else offered him.
You just had nothing else going on that day. Yeah.
It's pretty in-depth. I can't imagine the logistics and the coding that it would take for this game to have that kind of option on it, because that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, you know, I think what was his name? Sable, something like that.
Yeah.
Who used to run a site maybe 2-3 years ago. I think he could have done it. I think he could have got it done. Seems like he understood the coding much better than the new guys do.
Yeah. And that's because they're new guys. I mean, they're used to new coding. You know, we're talking about 20-year-old code. And these guys, some of these guys, you know, were still in diapers at that time, bless their hearts, you know. And that's one of the problems with this particular platform, is that we today in 2022 are playing a game that was basically rolled off the shelf in, what was it, 1999? So
like hieroglyphic coding. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine the pages of coding. You know, we've seen the pass progression chart, and the quarterback's decision-making is, you know, 16 pages long for one play. I can't imagine what that would be like. And with new code, where everything is modular built and you can plug and play and move things around, that would be so much nicer. But yeah, when it comes to this platform, I think he was the one that was best equipped to do the things that needed to be done. But just because he knew it, he was well aware of that particular coding.
Well, I remember, and I've been playing the game for 5 years now. I remember he had like a 2-month period of time where he was accepting suggestions and he was incorporating those into the game. It's the same time when they changed the potential, where you could see the potential.
Yeah.
Right.
Where somebody asked for that and the next day it was there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That would be me. Actually, yeah. He and I talked about it with the colors.
Yeah.
And instead of just having the letters, I said, man, let's make it, easy on everybody and put the colors in there. Let's go with average for black and very low is red. And then you got an orange. And we worked with that and putting him on the actual roster page. It wasn't on there for a long time. So we put that on there. And then he and I had a long discussion about whether or not once a player was on the roster, if everybody should be able to see his potential. And my argument was, you can look at a recruit that is on another team, and if you've got scouts that are worth a damn, they can tell you his potential. So you would theoretically be able to know it. But again, what value is that to an opposing coach? None. There's no intrinsic value for me to know the potential of the players on Joe's roster. You can't combat potential. You can't defend against potential. They're either going to be playing or they're not. So,
well, you can use it for your own scouting report.
Oh, yeah.
In other words, I know that this guy doesn't mind taking people with very low potential.
Right.
Or he emphasizes this or that, and you can gauge that towards what you expect that person to do and how they will behave recruiting.
He'll take an average player if he's in the top 10, or he'll take an average player if he's in the top 3, but once he gets in the top 5 or below, it's high or nothing. Yeah. For recruiting, but for game planning, on the field stuff. Yeah.
They are what they are right now.
Yeah, you can even look at their growth in their attributes as well as their growth in their potential and get a little bit of an idea whether or not that guy was a high or a low or whatever. I mean, you can kind of get and that, I think from that standpoint, that's all you would need to know. But yeah, I guess there's other ways to think about that. But
another thing I noticed too, and I need to check to see if it's still the case. If, let's say I was at North Carolina Central, and I decided I wanted to move to James Madison. In that world, now I'm at James Madison. The previous year I was at North Carolina.
I know what you're going to say.
I could go back and look and see the potentials on that team, even though I was no longer the coach.
But you can't here.
You could as of about a month ago.
Okay. Well, see, that's my question is, now I scouted that guy. I've scouted guys on Ohio State's team.
Y'all go ahead. I'm going to look, see if it's capable. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I scouted a lot of players that my opponents signed, but the moment they sign on that team, I can no longer see the potential.
It disappears. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about with, and I don't know if it was just the previous year or, matter of fact, let me go to this team right here. I'm going to look at Stephen F. Austin, and if I remember correctly, I came from Dayton. So let me go to Dayton and look at their roster.
I haven't moved teams in a while to even know that would even be available.
Yeah, it's gone now. So, yeah, that was something. I don't know if it was just a glitch or what, but forever, a couple of years, it was like that. And then for some reason, I looked and checked the other day or the other month, and it was still there. So that was just one of the things. Again, what value is it? Other than setting the guy up for future knowledge on how he recruits and stuff. So interesting. Well, guys, it's almost the hour mark here. Yep. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Joe, what's your final thoughts on anything?
Well, it would be great if we could have another month or two of improvements to the game, like we just talked about with Sable. But I don't think that's forthcoming. So, I mean, I have a ton of suggestions, most of which will get shouted down by the crowd. But every now and then I'm a blind squirrel. I can find an acorn. So, but the game's good. I am kind of paring down. I have 3 profiles. I'm about ready to get rid of 1 profile, and eventually I'll be down to 1 profile. So, still having fun now.
It's cyclic with me, or cyclic, however you say that word. Sometimes I'll run 6 teams, sometimes 8, sometimes 2. I think I'm going to just pare down to 1 or 2 to keep, satisfying those juices until I can figure out how in the hell to win a national championship more than once.
Right. That's what I was just looking at. I was like, I'm down to 2 teams or in 2 worlds, and that seems pretty manageable, but there's still a big goose egg under that national championship box. So, we'll see.
We'll see. Well, guys, thanks for popping on, Joe. Definitely enjoy having you on anytime. Phil, same goes to you, and anybody else out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To the other 5 guys that watch this show, they have invites to come on anytime. Bring up anytime, any questions, any topics. We're not shy at all.
Yeah, exactly. Appreciate you still doing this, Magic. This is awesome.
Hey, I love it, and I'll do it for as long as I can, brother. You guys have a good night, and like I said at the onset, y'all be safe.
All right.
You as well.
All right. See you guys.
Bye-bye.